What up, guys? Welcome to another edition of the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. This is episode number 223. It's a very important number to me, 223.
It is.
Yeah. You know
Why?
why?
No.
It's not.
You know, I kind of made a big deal about episode 200, and you're like, it's just episode 200. What are you doing?
Yeah, because I kind of rained on Eugene's parade because he was like, episode 100, we did something, episode 200.
Sure.
And I don't know why, but it's like one of those things where it's like, I'm like the most terrible person about this sometimes. I don't get overly excited about stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I never really get overly excited, but I never really get overly like bummed out either. I'm always kind of somewhere in the middle. I'll get these little blips, but like I could have something that's really exciting. Oh, this is really cool. Moving on. You know, like some people, like when they like hit like people get like hit, like I remember they'll hit numbers on social media.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my God, guys, thank you so much for 100K or 200K.
I just did that today.
Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know. It's like, I appreciate it, but I never really get too wrapped up about it. Even when it was like belts.
I agree.
I never got super into my belts. I was like, oh, cool belt.
I agree. It was really kind of like, when I got my black belt, I was like, oh, all right. Well, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I achieved this thing, but now what?
Moving on.
Yeah. Let's just go.
So that's how I feel about a lot of stuff. And so I'm terrible about it. But anyway, real quick side tangent with you guys. Today we're going to talk about self-defense, and we'll talk about whether or not sport jiu-jitsu can be used in self-defense. That was kind of the question that was posed to me. And I think it makes for an interesting topic for a podcast. And so we'll dive into that idea. And some of you guys may have very strong opinions about this one way or the other. I'll share my ideas on it. And we'll jump into it here in just a second. But obviously, thanks to our sponsors for helping make this podcast happen so you guys can listen to us talk about this idea. Charles Webb. Promo code that we have for the podcast is Jiu-Jitsu20. So Jiu-Jitsu20, you'll save 20% on your order at checkout. Again, I use it as part of my nightly routine when I get ready for bed, about 30 minutes to an hour before. I'll take some gummies, I'll take the tincture, whatever I have at that time, whatever I'm using. And then from there, I'll start to my winding down process. And again, I notice a big difference. It's been incredibly helpful to me with my recovery regimen. And that's what I use it for. Mm-hmm. I don't use it really for much of anything else. I use it for my recovery regimen. And so I notice a market improvement for different things in relation to recovery from hard training. And so that's something that becomes ever more important, especially as you get older. Yeah. Right. As you get older, it's like, I was talking about this in one of my emails the other day. I'm like, there's the downside to training when you were younger, because, you know, there's a lot of upsides, and the upsides are more numerous. But one of the downsides to have started grappling when I was like 15 years old is the fact that when I started grappling and I was training, and then I got into jiu-jitsu in my late teens, I remember what it was like to train for like 3 hours, you know, or multiple times a day for 2 hour sessions. And then the next day, my body would magically heal, and I would recover, and I'd be ready to do it again. Mm-hmm. And then now it's like, man, if I train for 3 hours, I'm like, whoa. The next day, like I got to take that one off. I'm going to be beat up, you know. And so it's unfortunate because you get kind of bummed out. You're like, man, I used to be able to do this. But one of the things that is helpful to me as I'm getting a little bit older, getting up there in the years, not that old yet, but still climbing the age bracket a little bit. And also I've been doing jiu-jitsu for, you know, almost 19 years, wrestling for longer than that. You know, I kind of aged in dog years. So
you've grappled longer than more than half of your life. Yeah.
I'm over the halfway mark.
That's cool.
It's weird. It's how you know you're getting old and you've been doing something for a long time. But again, I've been doing it for a long time. And so CBD is one of my favorite supplements that I add into my recovery regimen. In case you're curious, and in case you want to try it out for yourself, you can go to their website at charlesweb.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20. Also, thanks to Matt at Epic Roll for helping support the podcast. He makes jiu-jitsu gis, he makes rash guards, he makes shorts, he makes all the different stuff, t-shirts, anything jiu-jitsu related that you could kind of want as far as merch and gear. Matt makes it. And Matt is a black belt who trains jiu-jitsu. He's on the mats training like he's one of us. He's not some random like yahoo that's just trying to like make a buck, right? He's a guy that's been on the mats for a long time, and he makes really cool stuff that's worthwhile wearing, you know? Also, shout out to all you guys. I just got back from the Origin camp. Yeah. And I saw a lot of people with the rash guards, the Epic Roll rash guards that we had. Yeah. So we the ones that we had done by him. So the Jiu-Jitsu Epic Roll partnership, saw a bunch of you guys with it. Saw a couple Epic Roll shirts out there. It's pretty cool. And I talked to some of them. They're like, yeah, I use the code Jiu-Jitsu, to get it.
Nice.
So I was like, cool,
Nice.
cool. So I was like, glad you listened to it. Also, a lot of you guys listened to the podcast that were at the Origin camp, because a lot of people were like, man, I love your podcast.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, so it's cool. So it was good meeting you guys. And again, if any of you have not checked out Epic Roll's stuff, again, just check it out. Check out their website at epicrollbjj.com. Give it a whirl as far as looking at what they have to offer. Again, I think Matt makes some really cool designs. They're simple, but I think it's like, it's easy to wear stuff. It's not like something crazy or anything like that. But again, cool designs, good quality stuff. And you can save 15% on the order with the code Chewjitsu at checkout. Chewjitsu, CHEWJITSU, 15% at checkout, and give it a whirl. Also, thanks to Manscaped for helping support the podcast. Manscaped is the premier men's below the belt grooming company, but they kind of have expanded and gone above the belt as well. And so they've got pretty much anything that you could think of for male grooming, everything from trimmers and shavers, razors, deodorants, body sprays, colognes, aftershave. I mean, the whole thing. And it all smells great. All the quality of the products are really high. And I'm a big fan of it. Again, it was they were the toughest sponsor for us to give the okay.
Initially, yeah.
Initially, because, the idea of me getting up here and talking about trimming my balls wasn't exactly, that's one of those subjects you just don't bring up that often. I don't sit around and say, hey guys, what ball trimmer do you use? It's not something that comes up in conversation.
Yeah.
But it's a good trimmer. And again, I use it on my beard as well.
Yep.
To trim my beard down, which I need to do, but I got to wait till I get a haircut. Otherwise it'll look weird to have like a really trimmed up beard and like bushy hair. So once I get my haircut tomorrow, I'll get all that tightened up a bit. But again, they make really good products. And if you guys are a man who's looking for some grooming products, or if you're looking for grooming products for the man in your life, then check them out. You can go to their website at manscaped.com, and the promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20 for 20% off the order, and you get free shipping. And again, use it on any other products there that they have available to them. I've used almost everything that they offer, and everything that I've used has been high quality and been pretty good. So again, it has the Chewy stamp of approval, which is not a stamp. That's just a sort of proverbial thing that I'm saying, just in case you don't know. I'm just saying that they have my stamp.
They don't walk around stamping people.
Yeah, they don't have that on their website, and I don't actually have a stamp. But if I did have a stamp of approval, I would give it to them, because it's a worthwhile product.
Yeah, it's good. It's useful.
I'm in a silly mood today.
You're a little silly.
That's right. I got like I came back to the Ohio Valley.
Oh, there you go.
And I got that
welcome back, baby.
Welcome back. And the pollen allergens are getting to me. Guys, also, if you want to support the podcast directly, you can do so by going to the Patreon at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. There's the in there. So THAE podcast, Jiu-Jitsu podcast, the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And
I thought it sounded better.
The Jiu-Jitsu podcast.
I don't know. It's me.
So I don't know. I'm just making sure you guys know there's the. And again, you can go there and you can subscribe and you get access to some exclusive content that we have prepared for you guys. It's been going on for several years now. Interviews with the previous guests that we've had that are not released anywhere. Also videos that are not released anywhere. Narrated rolls. Also different stretching videos that Eugene has done. And there's a bunch of different stuff there. So if you guys want to get access to it, you can go to patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. If you really like my videos, if you like the podcast, it's an entertaining product. It has a lot of stuff in there, and it's priced very reasonably well. So if you want to check that out. Also, guys, just a heads up, on September the 9th, so at the time of filming this, we're still in August, but coming up on September the 9th, we are going to be releasing the next batch of Origin gis, that the custom Jiu-Jitsu gis made by Origin. So last year we made a black and green one, and we did a pure white one. We sold a ton of those things. People loved them, but I know that a lot of people missed out. Like, people have been sending me messages all year saying, hey man, when are you going to do them? We're doing them on September the 9th is when we're starting, and we'll have that open for about 2 weeks to where you guys can get them. And then we're closing it back down to get everything taken care of. So if you would like to get a custom Jiu-Jitsu gi, it'll be different colors this time, made by Origin. I think they make the best gis around, and they are made here in America, which is pretty dope.
Yep.
I went down to their factory this past weekend and was able to, at the camp and stuff, I got to actually see the people making it. Again, they're not in a sweatshop. They're doing it, and you can see that they actually like their job. They're working hard, but they're not miserable. They're getting paid a living wage. They go to lunch in the afternoon and go to different places and stuff like that. And they were happy Americans.
Yeah.
So if you want like a happy American making your gi, making a high quality gi that'll stick with you for, here's another thing about it. A lot of people are, they get kind of funny about stuff like when they got to pay a few extra bucks. Yeah, you're going to pay a little bit more money for the gi. I have an Origin gi from 2018. It has not ripped. The pants are still good. The gi is still good. It's still a good gi. Mm-hmm. And I put it through hell for a while. Like I still wear it here and there, but I've got more gis now. But it's a good gi. Like it's a quality gi. So again, sure, you pay a little bit more money. You get a higher quality gi. And again, who doesn't like to support like our fellow citizens in America? If you're an American, who doesn't like to support them making a living wage, making a product for us that's made in America? Mm-hmm. So, it's like basically from growth of the cotton to being spun to being produced, it's all made here. I think it's dope. I think it's such a cool thing. And so if you guys would like to support that and like to get that custom gi, check on my website, check on my Instagram on September the 9th. We'll have more details there. We'll be selling them for about 2 weeks. And I'll have a few bonuses to include that you'll get upon purchasing the gi. And guys, if you want to get an update on anything that I ever have going on, the best way to do that is to join my Chew Crew email list, which you can do so by going to my website at chewjitsu.net/join, JOIN. By doing so, you'll get 3 free ebooks, and you'll also get access to my daily email where I include things like, hey guys, I have a gi coming up. So if you ever want to be on the in with that kind of stuff, that's the place to do it. And so guys, with that said, let's jump into this podcast and let's talk about whether or not you can use sport jiu-jitsu in a self-defense situation. All right, guys. So the question I got asked recently was, can sport jiu-jitsu be applied for the streets, right? For the streets with a Z.
The streets.
For self-defense, right? And, again, this is kind of a funny topic because a lot of times, and I'll talk about let's get this out of the way. I do have a bias. Like I trained fighting. Like I started jiu-jitsu in 2003 with the implicit purpose of fighting. Along with that, I learned how to do the self-defense, some of the basic self-defense stuff. And so I got into jiu-jitsu as a fighting art. However, I spend a lot of time training sport jiu-jitsu, and I like sport jiu-jitsu. And so I tend to take up for sport jiu-jitsu in this aspect because a lot of people want to poo-poo on sport jiu-jitsu as if it's somehow like not even possible that it could be used in a street fight situation. And so let's just sort of jump into this idea. So with that bias out of the way, that I do like sport jiu-jitsu, the answer, sort of the TLDR version, is yes, it can be used. And from experience, I can tell you from my own experience, from the experience of many of my students, it can definitely be used. So let's sort of throw out a hypothetical scenario. Now the scenario is going to be very lopsided. So this is not a stab at self-defense, but I'm getting it to illustrate a particular idea. Let's say that you have 2 students. One student has been training self-defense and they have literally the best self-defense techniques at their disposal. And when I say best self-defense, I mean like they've learned all the traditional self-defense techniques that everybody likes to bring up about this whole situation, right? And they've really focused on training for the streets. But this person's never rolled before. Now, if that person was to get into a fight with a sport jiu-jitsu player who has good takedowns, has good top pressure, good control, who has won competitions and rolls all the time, if these 2 human beings fought, who would win? Right? So I know who I think would win. Who do you think would win?
Well, I feel like the person that would win.
We're going to get into it. Just a hypothetical situation. We'll illustrate in a second.
It's hard to answer that.
I know you want to elaborate. We're not going to elaborate. I just want you to answer it. Who do you think would win? The guy that the self-defense guy with the self-defense techniques that doesn't roll,
I would say whoever rolls more has more of that.
No, we're not gonna go there yet. We're gonna get there.
I'll say the guy that rolls more, the person that rolls more. I would say, but there's so much.
I know. There's a lot there.
This is like a no-win.
No, this is a perfect one.
Okay,
the guy that rolls more, that does does the sport jiu-jitsu competitions, would beat the living tar out of the person who has technique but doesn't roll. I think
so. Don't roll at all. They don't roll.
Doesn't roll. He doesn't roll.
Okay.
He doesn't roll. He just does technique. He does all the self-defense technique.
Okay. No, I would.
He's gonna beat the piss out of him.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, I thought for some reason you're saying that. I thought the other person rolled.
No,
so they don't roll at all.
I'm saying they don't roll at all.
They're just basically doing they're
doing the technique. Yeah,
with resistance, without it
doesn't matter if he doesn't roll, it ain't gonna work.
Okay.
Like it's just the nature of it. Like, so I think I don't know if this is true. Someone told me this once, so this could be completely misattributed. But I think someone told me that Bruce Lee said that, like, you could take a boxer and make a person do boxing and wrestling for a year, and they can probably beat most traditional martial artists. And if you think about, well, why is that? It has to do with the training methodology. They spar.
Yes.
Like boxers spar, wrestlers spar. They go after each other. And so again, what I'm trying to get at here is it's the secret sauce, if you will, of jiu-jitsu is not just the technique. The techniques are good, right? But a lot of our techniques, especially the guts of jiu-jitsu, the essence, the basic fundamentals, they're not ours. Like, there's jiu-jitsu techniques that are traditional to jiu-jitsu, whether it's being done in the traditional form of Japanese jiu-jitsu, judo, or us. I mean, because again, judo and old judo and what we would consider Brazilian jiu-jitsu were indistinguishable for a long time. It wasn't really until you had a really big sport scene in jiu-jitsu that it sort of separated itself, right? Like the rule sets, and like the competition aspect, where people are like, competition spurs growth. So when you get a whole group of people fighting to be the best at this thing, and they start to they go one up each other all the time, and they're focused on just this thing, they devote their whole lives to just doing this one thing, that makes the sport better. I mean, I agree, yeah. It's just the way it is. And so for a long time, if you were to go watch an old judo match, where they would allow them to do a little bit more groundwork and stuff, watch some of the early jiu-jitsu matches, they look about the same. They don't look that different, right? And so again, it's, with this said, a lot of the fundamentals, not all of them, but a lot of the fundamentals are there. So what separates what we do, say, versus some of these other martial arts, and then even some of the joint locks and some of the groundwork that we do, it's in other martial arts, other traditional martial arts that don't train like we do. The magic is the training. The magic is how we implement those techniques. Because you could have all the cool techniques, but then that makes you just like a karate guy or a kung fu guy or whatever, who's just doing katas. There's some legit karate guys who are nasty, like guys like Kyokushin and Byakuran and stuff, and they'll do some hardcore punching, and they're beating each other up. But we also have been seeing the McDojo karate gym at the strip mall, where they're just doing katas and there is no punching or kicking. They never actually hit each other. Well, if that's the case, these people are never going to be tough. They're never going to be able to fight. Yeah. Right. It's just, it's an illusion. It's like the woman going to the women's self-defense seminar for 3 hours on Saturday. And then somehow that's supposed to prepare her for some fight. That's not going to do anything. Maybe you could tell them to be a little bit more self-aware, and be, have situational awareness. But as far as if someone grabs them, they're not going to be ready for it, because the whole situation that happens a lot of times is, the stress. The training that we do, like rolling and sparring, that inoculates us to stress. It helps us become used to that whole experience. And you can think about the first time you rolled, what happened? You were probably exhausted after a minute or two, right? Because your body was not used to that. And so it's very important. And so kind of going back to it, understand that, because the person asked me, could self-defense or could sport jiu-jitsu and sport jiu-jitsu techniques be used in a fight situation? Sport jiu-jitsu is just grappling. And so, of course, it could. Takedowns, closing distance, clinch work, taking the person down, being able to break posture, pull the person into it could be 100% useful. Now, this is where you have to think about it too. If for some reason then we get into the fighting aspect, it's helpful to know how to close distance, deal with punches and kicks for a fighting situation. And those things are very useful. Those things are very useful. But one of the things too is that if you're going to practice those, they should still be practiced with some level of stress, some level of actually trying to do it. Like if you've never been punched, not to the point where you have to like lose brain cells, but if you've never been rattled a little bit by a punch to where it got hit you hard enough to make your body freak out a little bit, and you're like practicing self-defense, it's like, well, kind of, but you're doing katas basically. Because it might feel good to like, oh, I'm doing this thing. But like if you've never been hit enough to where, and I'm not saying hard because everybody's a little different, but if you've never like had someone pop your face a little bit that makes you go, oh, this is what a punch might feel like.
Yep.
Then the minute someone does actually punch you, it's going to be a rude awakening for you if you thought you knew what to do. Right. But again, sport jiu-jitsu is perfectly fine. If you look at a lot of sport jiu-jitsu competitors who have been in situations where they were recorded fighting, they're fine. Like they can take people down. They can get into good positions and stuff like that. They have takedowns. They have the ability to go at someone 100%, and they know what that's like. They know what it's like to have some other random human being that you have no clue about, who does not know you, does not like you, and they're trying to rip your face off. They know what that feels like, opposed to only training in like a nice, safe environment. And so I think there's a lot of aspects about sport jiu-jitsu that's very useful for a fight situation. Again, maybe not the specific techniques or the strategies that you would use, because you're not going to pull guard in a fight, but dealing with another human being who you don't know, doesn't like you, that's a big deal, and then having people watch you, the amount of anxiety that it kicks up, all those things, and learning how to deal with those are conducive to being more successful in a self-defense situation or getting out of a self-defense situation.
Yeah, I think a couple of things you mentioned, somebody that stress, if they're not used to like somebody like literally grabbing you with all their strength, like you could panic, right?
Oh yeah.
And then also the other side of it is like if you get punched in the face, well, you could panic there too. So you're not, all of a sudden your nose starts bleeding or you see blood everywhere. Like, what do you do, right? Do you panic? So I think that probably more importantly, that being able to deal with that stress of that environment is kind of the key. But we got examples of jiu-jitsu, purely sport jiu-jitsu guys, and MMA, for example, doing really, I mean, obviously they're highest level grapplers doing well, but also some of them getting submitted. And I think some of that's where you get hit.
Right.
We've got, Bushesha, who's like 4-0, but I don't know how good of guys he's fighting. Yeah. He just submitted, he's like 4-0 now. I just submitted a guy pretty quick with like an ankle lock.
Right. But then you had like Rodolfo Vieira.
He was doing pretty well, and then he got hit a few times, got tired, and this guy's a purple belt, and everybody's like freaking out. Yep. I'm like, dude, he was exhausted.
He was.
It changes things. It does like knock you down a couple pegs. If you're even a really, really good grappler, you don't have to. There's just a different intensity to it, and I think some of the outcomes could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
In a street fight or MMA fight.
100%. And this is where too, you got to also, let's play the other side of it, right? Because obviously if someone's like more of a self-defense person, you could be listening to this podcast thinking, man, Chewy's really one-sided on this thing. Not necessarily, follow me. If you're a sport jiu-jitsu practitioner, you shouldn't automatically think that you're, just because you're a sport jiu-jitsu blue belt or something, that you can beat the tar out of anybody in a fight.
Sure. I agree.
And especially depending on your ability to do takedowns. If you don't have the ability to do takedowns, like if you have weak takedowns, like you have a really bad self-defense game. I'm not saying that you have to do the takedown to take the person down and get like top position, whatever. I mean, because you could do that if you're one-on-one, but if you're in like a street fight, you might take the person down and just dump them just to get out of there, right? And then also striking. Like if you do sport jiu-jitsu and you want to be able to fight, you should probably invest in some striking. It's very important, like boxing, a little bit of kickboxing and boxing. Doesn't mean you have to go deep into it like you do jiu-jitsu, but you should probably have a little bit. Probably know how to throw a couple punches, know how to deal with punches. Because otherwise it's like, I mean, again, you'll probably be okay because most people can't fight. And we're talking about America here, by the way. It's different. You go to some other countries, we're talking about America. Yeah. Like, and as bad as America is, generally speaking, it's a pretty we've got a pretty decent, comfortable society that has the benefit of rule of law, right? Most of the time things are happening. Like most people don't have to like walk down the street and worry about being like gunned down or beaten up by random people. There's some parts of the country that are like that, but not most of the country, right? And so again, we're kind of talking about the West, I guess, not even America, but just the West in general, like Western countries and like Western Europe. You probably, I mean, like you can think about how many times have you been in a fight? like outside of a gym. It's like, it's very rare.
Mhm.
You know, it doesn't happen often. And most of the time, if it does happen, like if something starts up, you can typically diffuse the situation by like saying, "Hey man, just chill." You know, and honestly, hell, that's a benefit to jiu-jitsu too, because jiu-jitsu for a lot of us is like therapy. I think Ricardo Laborio said that this weekend.
Mhm.
He was talking about, like, he's like, you know, sport, martial art, whatever. He's like, man, it's like therapy for all of us. You know, it's like first and foremost, the damn thing's like therapy. And so, like, for most, like, one of the more powerful things you also get at jiu-jitsu is like, you don't want to fight, you don't care,
Right.
and you can relax a little bit. So like, someone gets in your face, you know, for at least this has happened to me, and this is my sort of experience with it. Someone gets in my face and they call me a name or something. I'm like, okay,
Mm.
all right, that's fine. You know, because I don't want to fight, because I'm like, I just got done fighting for 2 hours on the mats. I'm like, or in, you know, back when I was fighting 2 hours in the ring and everything, I'm like, I don't want to fight this guy, you know, so I'll just diffuse the situation and just chill out. Whereas people that don't train, they might get more amped up by that. They might start getting angry. Like, how dare you call me that?
Right.
Don't call me a bitch. You know,
Mhm.
like, you're the bitch, whatever, you know,
Mhm.
whatever the name calling is, to start getting angry about it. Whereas like us, like, whatever, dude,
Yeah.
you know, you can walk away from the situation pretty easy.
Yeah, I think you know, there's some important things to think about. You also, like you said, you don't want to oversell yourself. Like if you're, you know, a blue belt, even a purple belt, you don't want to think that, you know, just because you know jiu-jitsu that you can beat anybody up,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Because you get punched, you don't know if you can take
You
a
don't
hit or
know.
not. You don't know. And you're right. Like I think the stand up, if anything, even if your stand up is not great, having when we did a little bit, this is years ago, and I actually had a lot of benefit from it. We did some just jujitsu with striking, like gloves, very light punches and stuff. We did some groundwork and
Mhm.
things like that. And I think the distance management is something that's very, very important. We can talk about which techniques maybe don't work.
Mhm.
Obviously, some obvious ones would be like, oh, I'm not going to berimbolo invert in the street. You know,
Yeah,
you don't
of
want to get your
course.
face stomped in. But there are some things you can, you know, some jujitsu specific, and usually a lot of these techniques that are like white to blue belt that are going to be pretty useful and are going to be like, you know, in that situation are going to be kind of what you need to do, like 2-on-1
Mhm.
kimura grip type, that type of stuff. But I think the distance management is really important. What I learned, because I like to hang out in half guard, knee shield stuff. Well, you either got to get in or get out. You can't be in that mid range where they can kind of,
Mhm.
you know, throw strikes. That because I got hit a few times. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I can't be hanging out here. I got to get really deep in there, or I got to get out. So that was an interesting thing. I think it's important. I hope we maybe do that again sometime just to keep
I
it
do it
fun on
every now
certain
and then.
days.
I do it every now and then. It's one of those things where it's like, not everybody likes it.
I don't
I do it every now and then, but we usually, but the thing is, it's not fun for me, because like a lot of times when I do it, my classes drop for that week.
really.
Yeah, because some people just they don't want to do it.
I don't per se like it, but I do like it. Like I think it's I think it's maybe
Well,
not
yeah, it's not.
what I
It's
wanted.
uncomfortable.
I think it's
It's not as fun as rolling, just like doing
right,
jujitsu, but it's still useful.
but it's very important. I think it's very important for some of us that have been training for a long time to at least have a little bit of that, because it can kind of it sets you straight a little bit, gets you a little bit of a perspective on what you know where you stand.
Mm-hmm. And
Um,
it lets you know, like you said, you learn those lessons from getting hit a little bit, where you're like, oh, like, you know, again, not hard, not
no,
like, well, I mean, hard enough that like hard enough that you notice, and it gives you this ability to sort of look at it and say, what's going on here? What am I doing wrong? And one of the things that Eugene was just talking about was playing in the mid range. If you think about a lot of guard positions and a lot of, even on top, a lot of positions are, you can kind of be in the mid range and you're okay. On the feet, mid range is fine in jiu-jitsu. It's where we sit. It's where we set up takedowns. In a fight, you either have to be in or out.
mm-hmm,
You can't be like, you can't be dangling in the middle, because with middles where someone punches you,
sure,
you know, that kind of stuff. And so you have to be in or out, and you have to learn ways to close that distance and to deal with that.
yeah. Is there so like if you're a jujitsu person, jujitsu practitioner, purely jujitsu, is there a way that you like to maybe incorporate stand up? Is there a certain type of stand up, not like even like striking that you
Mhm.
like to incorporate into, like, say, if you're a purely jujitsu guy, what type of maybe striking do you think would fit in really well?
Like
Like
boxing.
just boxing, right? Because
I think,
there's less variables to add in. You're just
yeah,
adding the hand.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's just hands, and also like you're only adding in the hands, and pretty much whenever you're boxing, you can be in sort of a slightly hybrid stance, and you can be ready to shoot at any point. Whereas you start kickboxing, it changes a little bit. Like you're kicking and those type of things. Although a good low kick's great. like as far as a street fight goes, because a good low kick, like lob a shin into someone's thigh. If they've never been kicked low kick, like this is the thing too. If you guys have never been low kicked, your leg will just like literally like the muscle spasms up. It'll just like it cramps up and you just fall over. It's so painful because you'll kick it. The person feels like they're okay for a second, and then they're like having trouble walking. And years ago, one of my friends, he had these two dudes like kind of basically try to fight him down at a bar, and he like low kicked him.
Was it
yeah?
I remember that video.
Yeah. It was him. And so he low kicked one of them. The other guy comes over, low kicks him. Yep. Eventually,
he popped up and he knocked him out, I think.
Yeah, because one of the guys came up on him and he like just punched him. But he started those low kicks, and those dudes you could see was like they're like, I don't like this anymore.
Like, what is that?
Yeah, and so like low kicks are really useful. That's about, I wouldn't. I mean, granted, I mean, you could do a high kick on the street if you're good with them, but like I think I like a low kick, and then boxing. I think boxing does well. Plus, it's just like goes back to the jiu-jitsu part. I think one of the things that's also really useful is to have some striking sparring experience. Not a ton, but enough to where you can have some level of comfort with it. Yeah. So this way when the punch hits, you know how to roll with it. There really is something to rolling with the punches.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times when people get hit initially, they're very stiff and it makes the punch worse. Like you can think about like when you're in a car wreck and if the person's stiff versus relaxed, like they say the drunk person kind of just flows with it, right? Yeah. So it happens with punches a lot. If someone's really stiff when they get hit, their body just absorbs that shock a lot more. Whereas if you get hit and you just kind of flow with it, like, and you don't get too tensed up from it, it doesn't bother you as much. I remember this when I first started boxing, I was very tense. And when I would get hit, man, it was just like my whole body would reverberate with the thud of that punch. Whereas as I got a little bit of sparring, and I was like, oh, this isn't too bad. And so I think that's useful. And again, this is one of those things. This is not a path to. This is not the short path, right? This is like I'm telling you a path for a well-rounded martial artist that's going to be for years to come. So this may not be the best path for you if you don't have time to train. If you're already squeezing in a couple hours for jiu-jitsu here and there. Understandable. Jiu-jitsu for the most part for most people will be just fine. Again, like I'm talking about Western countries right now, you'll be all right because you're more than likely probably never going to be in a fight anyway. It's just the nature of the beast, you know, but for me, it's like, if you're really serious about this stuff, you train your body, you train your grappling, you train your strikes, you train with the weapon, right? Like if you're going to carry, you know how to use that weapon, right? Like, so this way you have all those bases covered. It's not something to be like, if you're going to be like uber focused on self-defense, it shouldn't be just like, oh yeah, like I trained a little bit today, got my self-defense. Like no, if you're really focused on the self-defense, you should be doing some different things like that to make sure that you're a well-rounded martial artist who can fight in multiple different areas. But again, that said, it's not like sport jiu-jitsu is not useful in those situations. I mean, you can definitely use the lessons that you gain from sport jiu-jitsu and the attributes and the qualities that you develop in that hyper stressful situation can be used in a fight 100%.
Yeah. And like, as far as like, let's talk jiu-jitsu techniques. There's certain like things that you like or you prefer positions to be in if you're in a street fight as far as jiu-jitsu goes.
Sure.
Obviously closed guard, maybe if you end up on your back.
On the back, closed guard, or of some sort of open guard where I can kick the person away.
Right, with the feet like kind of on the hips kind of thing.
Kind of almost like a spider with a knee shield in there. It's kind of hard to explain, but yeah, an open guard with our knees in there, so it makes it hard for them to punch and you can kick away. On top, knee on belly, side control, mount, back mount. If you get back mount, flatten them all the way out. Using a lot of times from the top positions, using submissions as a hold. Some things I don't really like I don't necessarily want to go for an arm bar. You can get bit. One of my old coaches, he did an arm bar on a guy on the street who didn't know what an arm bar was, and the guy bit him. It reminds me of the story of when the Americans, when the Europeans and Americans were over in the Philippines, and they were trying to quell the like local uprisings. And at the time, I guess like that when these people originally got there, I don't think it was the Americans. It was probably someone before them. But when I think it was the Spanish or something like that, whoever was like the first Europeans that got there, they're shooting these guys, right? But from my understanding, when I was reading the story, and I could be remembering incorrectly, they'd never heard guns before, so they didn't know. So there's a lot of fear to the idea of a gun, right? So for instance, if someone came in and shot a round off in here, you and I would hit the dirt, right? And we'd be like, oh my God, did I get hit? Because we know what a gun is. But they hear these pops going off and they're getting hit. And they're like, what just happened? They're like, and they're still running. They're bleeding out and everything else, but they're just like, they're still going. They have no idea what just hit them. And then slowly, then things change as they realize what they were. So with that kind of idea in mind, right, the same thing happens with jiu-jitsu. If the person doesn't know, right, they don't know when they're caught. They don't know they're in danger. It's like why you got to be careful with the submissions you use with a beginner, because if they just start, put them into some omoplata, they could tear their shoulder.
Sure.
And so the guy bit him. So he put him in an arm bar. He ended up popping his arm,
Sure.
but he also got a big bite mark on the back of his calf. Had to go to the doctor and basically get antibiotics for like 2 weeks because of an infection, because people's mouths are dirty.
Yep.
And so I don't really like things like arm bars. I'm more of a choke person.
Yeah.
And if I use a submission, I'm going to use it a lot of times for a hold, key locks, kimuras, using them for a hold to keep the person down so they can't move. Because you get someone's like shoulder locked up, it kind of positions their body to where they can't move, right? Helps them keep pinned down. Knee on the belly is a great position too. And then being able to apply a choke safely, or strangle technically, but a vascular constraint, or restraint properly, right? Where basically you can keep the person from hurting themselves and hurting you, but again, those are some of the basics. And then you have to have some takedowns. You have to have some takedowns, and you have to have takedown defense, because, anybody now has watched the UFC. And they may not know how to do it, but you could have some big guy who just knows to duck his head and try to grab you and scoop you up. And I remember back in high school, like guys were scooping people.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know how to wrestle. They knew nothing about the UFC, but they knew how to scoop someone. And that was basically where you'd run in for a double leg, and they were really ugly double legs, but they'd go in there and grab the legs and scoop someone up and take them to the ground. And so again, you got to have some takedown defense there. You can't just pull guard and sit on your butt and start scooting towards someone. If you think you're going to try to defend a fight. And the thing is that, again, most of the time when you see sport jiu-jitsu practitioners being in fights, this is kind of what they do. Get to top positions, they take person down. If the person somehow does get on top of them, they sweep them pretty quickly, and they get to a good dominant position.
How do you feel about and this it's got to be, I feel like, used properly, triangle chokes, because you see if you're on bottom,
got to hook.
You got to hook the leg, right?
Yeah, but no, they can be fantastic. There was actually a woman who was attacked by someone some years ago, and the way that she defended herself, the guy took her down. She got into the guard. I think he was going to try to like either steal her purse or rape her or something like that. She got him into a triangle choke, choked him unconscious, called the police, and held that dude there and let him kind of in and out until the cops got there. And it's a very powerful move. You just got to understand, again, how does that change? You got to hook under the leg when slams are legal. And honestly, it's not a bad idea to hook under that leg anyway, because it puts you in a good angle for arm bars and everything else. Yeah. But especially with a fight situation when the person can pick you up and dump you, you got to make sure you hook under the leg. But it's a fantastic move. Yeah. And it doesn't really put you in any danger of being bitten too bad. I mean, because they can't really get down there to the bad places, you know what I mean, to bite very easily. And also, if you have clothes on, it'll be even protected a little bit. Because that's one of the things where you'll see people say just grab the groin or something. And it's if someone has a pair of jeans on, it's not going to do anything. You can't just grab, you're not going to grab my groin through my jeans and rip my stuff off. So if you're being attacked by a man, which more than likely, if you're being attacked, you're going to be being attacked by a man, because that's who does most of the attacking, right? Is men. Well, then got to be prepared for that. Grabbing the groin is not always an option. Got to have a little something else every now and then.
A little something. Yeah, I think just you don't know we're on the street, like you said. No, people may not know they're in a bad position if they're in some type of shoulder lock. Some shoulder locks you can use, to actually control their body. But yeah, an arm bar, people don't know. When I was,
their arm's kind of straight.
Well, yeah, when I was when I first started, I remember somebody got me an arm bar. This was at the very first gym, and I stood up with them hanging on my arm, and they were hyperextending my arm, and I was trying to dump them off. Yeah. And then the coach was like, "No, let go." Told the other guy to let go of me, because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Right. I was like, I'm gonna just wiggle my way out, but he could have broke my arm, just as easily. So that's a perfect, that makes sense. You want to probably use, because you may be the one in control. You're like, I don't want to break this person's arm.
Right. And this is why, when I roll with brand new guys, and whenever we have someone that's brand new in the gym, I let the guys know, no arm bars, no arm locks, choke them, because not everybody knows what an arm lock is. Everybody knows what a choke is.
Everybody knows when you
feel a choke, you're like, oh, this is not good, right? Everybody knows what that is, and that's kind of another sort of a side point. rolling with brand new people is not fun. Because like, I mean, it can be okay sometimes, but it can be one of the more stressful things that you can do because they can get wild, they can elbow you and all this crazy stuff. But those are the best people to roll with, to have a decent sense of what it's like to fight someone with grappling, like, because they're so green, they don't know. And so they're going to move in weird ways that, again, are very specific to brand new people.
Yeah.
And like, because here's what happens. A lot of times in jiu-jitsu, as we develop and get skills, we begin to respond to things very similarly. This is why like people in jiu-jitsu can have a technique or a position and they can say, well, if the guy does this, 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 and this, they know that these things are probably going to happen because they've dealt with these responses time and time again. New people, people that have not trained, they have a similar type of thing where, like, for instance, you put a brand new guy on his back who doesn't know a whole lot. There's a good chance he's going to turn over and expose his back to you and go to his stomach, because they want to go up to their stomach to get up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because coming up to trying to stand up from off your back is not easy and it's not natural. If you're trying to stand up, what's natural? Turn your stomach, push up, get up. And so they almost always expose their back. This is why you see like untrained people who get into like amateur MMA. They almost always get choked out quick because they turn their back, they expose their back to the person.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of responses that brand new people have that are not going to be normal to your training partners that train a lot. And so it's useful to roll with brand new people because it's like a fight. And honestly, when I roll with someone that's brand new, I roll with them as if it's a fight. Granted, I'm not going to punch them and they're not going to punch me, but I just assume that they might elbow me. I just assume that they might do something they're not supposed to do just to be on the safe side. Because again, rolling with a brand new person can be the more dangerous thing in jiu-jitsu than rolling with, say, like a higher level belt, because they don't know what they're doing and they can do something bad to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you say to so we talked about the sport jiu-jitsu person, how they can, obviously they're going to be the ones that have a better shot in a self-defense situation.
If they roll. Now,
yes.
If you get a guy who does train self-defense techniques and he rolls regularly or whatever, then I mean, he's going to be fine.
So what do you say to the person that, like, you know, that just does pure self-defense? I mean, you just gotta get them. I mean, that's fine to do, but you know, I assume that
with no rolling.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
But
I
don't
rolling,
even know. Are you saying it's jujitsu? Like, do you mean like they do jujitsu specific movements, like self-defense type techniques, but they don't roll? Are there gyms that do that actually?
So listen, it was a hypothetical situation to illustrate what is the magic of jiu-jitsu. It's not the damn techniques.
Yeah.
Okay. Because again, we just said that if in absence of these specific self-defense techniques, the rolling would pull them through.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's what I was trying to get at. Now, most gyms, they blend it. Most gyms are not, they only do, most gyms don't only do technique, right? They do other stuff. It's fine to have technique only days, but you should roll too.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know of any gyms that only do technique. They maybe do it for beginners at a certain point and then let them roll. But again, that's perfectly fine. My thing the reason I was saying it that way is because I'm trying to illustrate what is so important about the way that we train. Techniques are important, yes, but techniques change. It's more about the methodology behind the training. The fact that we test our stuff out in some live situation. It's not going to be realistic in some senses, but the feelings of anxiety, the feelings of stress, your heart racing, your blood pumping, your body having to deal with people grabbing you, that is 100% real, right? Your body doesn't know that it's like, oh, this is a completely safe environment. Because again, when you're rolling and you have someone trying to choke you out, your body doesn't have this like, oh, it's okay, this is a safe environment. It's like there's someone trying to choke me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I mean, if you had a heart rate monitor hooked up, you'd be like, oh my God, my heart rate's like shooting through the roof right now as I'm trying to defend this. And so those are useful things to develop. And so that was my point for making it up. I don't know of any gyms that only train technique. And if they do, that's not going to be advantageous, because again, if you only do technique and you never roll, you never spar, well, then you're no better than the guy that does the traditional martial arts that does katas. You could get just as much effectiveness by going and doing that. Yep. You have to do something to get your body into a stressful state and practice these things, even if it's just like situational stuff, you know, that allows you to do it. You have to do that, because if you don't do that, then you know you're just kidding yourself. You know, it's just that's the way it is.
I also do think that there's a lot of value to competing, to, you know, really, like, I think competition, there's a different intensity there that sometimes you can't recreate at the gym.
Oh yeah.
So, and I did a video on that previously on my YouTube channel, like as a white belt, like when I competed, I got almost like it helped my jiu-jitsu jump and improve a lot. Cause I was like, oh, I have some glaring holes here, or I'm pretty good at this, but I'm really not good at this area. And it kind of gave me like first of all, it focuses your training because you're training towards something, gives you some kind of something to focus on. But also, like when someone grabs you, most people feel really like, oh, they feel strong, you know, and then it's not like, it's just the intensity.
Yeah.
It's the intensity of it. And so I think like there's definitely, if you're just a self-defense person, but you do, you know, you roll and stuff at the gym, I think it'd be invaluable for you as well to do some sport specific competitions. Cause I think there's that intensity there is really, it can be helpful.
Yeah. I mean, and even like asking your coach to do like a mock tournament in your gym could be useful. You know, if you're doing more of a sport, because obviously if you're like a more of a self-defense person and you don't do a lot of the sport training, if you go to a sport competition, you might get killed. Like not literally, but like you might get like schooled because it's just different. It's just a different type. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. There's nothing wrong with being more focused on self-defense versus sport, or sport versus self-defense. They're just different avenues for people to exercise their own desires, right? It's not like the sport gyms aren't bad. The self-defense aren't bad. Like, you know, sport guys will make fun of the self-defense guys. Self-defense guys make fun of the sport guys, right? That's just tribalism. And it's what you're being told because it lines the pockets of people that you're paying. I mean, if we're going to be honest, I mean, it's like, because like there was a guy that was like asking me about that the other day. He was like, so I was told I wasn't supposed to train at these gyms about sport. You know, something about like, it was basically a person who's anti-sport jiu-jitsu. I was like, no, bro. I was like, train wherever you want to train. I was like, someone's saying that because it lines their pockets. I mean, train wherever you want to. What do you want to get out of this? It comes down to you. Like, what do you want to get out of this martial art? That's what's important for you, right? What do you want to get out of this?
Yep.
And so with that, I mean, that's important. And so, you know, you could also do a mock tournament. You could say, hey, coach, like, I don't want to go to the sport jiu-jitsu competition because I don't train enough sport jiu-jitsu. Or you could start maybe training some. But you could always say, hey, like, let's just get all the guys together, do a little in-house tournament, have people cheering and screaming. And man, I mean, that's still not going to be the same level of intensity, but it'll be more intense than just rolling, having people cheering, having a winner and a loser. I mean, I've done mock tournaments like in the gym, and you'll watch guys roll and they completely change. Like some guys, like you see the anxiety kicks up in them and their game just falls apart. You know, like I've literally watched guys like they like lost 2 belt levels, like when they like in like doing in-house type stuff, right? Lost 2 belt levels because all of a sudden they're nervous and they can't deal with the anxiety. And that's a bad thing. Because again, if you can't deal with anxiety, you know, what do you think is going to happen if someone gets in your face on the street? Like, you think you're going to be able to hold up to that? Like, you're probably going to be struggling, you know? And so again, it's a worthwhile exercise to do, to find ways to kick up the anxiety, because it's going to make you a stronger person, right? It's a form of stress that your body will adapt to, and in turn make you stronger and more resilient. So this way, if you do find yourself into a tougher situation, that's what you'll do. I mean, it's the same reason why, like, you know, for instance, when you train with like weapons, they may do things to get your heart rate racing before you are asked to shoot. So this way your body, like, you know, because again, if you're nice and relaxed and you put the gun on out and aim it and shoot, obviously that's not too hard. But all of a sudden, if you've been running and doing all these different things and you've been grappling, and all of a sudden your arms are tired, and then you've got to shoot, and it's like, whoa, like that's a different animal. You're all shaky and stuff. And so, you know, that's a lot of times with that kind of training, that's why they do that stuff, is to help people become comfortable using those same movements under stress. And so again, it's just finding different ways to do that is useful. All right, guys. So hope you enjoyed the podcast. Again, hopefully you guys took this from the sentiment from which it came from me to you. This is not a knock at sport jiu-jitsu. This is not a knock at self-defense jiu-jitsu. It's more of a thing that, like, I love jiu-jitsu. I love it in all its shades and colors and flavors. And I think that sometimes with the advent of the internet, you know, in the democratization of like information, we try to just stick to our little sliver because that's all we want to hear, you know, and that can be bad sometimes because we say echo chambers, right? And the problem with that is like, it's like we were talking about this with TV. If you think about the big mainstream media companies that a lot of us don't care for anymore, back in the day, they did a good job of being somewhere in the middle. Yeah. They had a slant, right? We all have our biases, but they had a slant, but they were still decent about keeping something in the middle so that everybody could kind of tune in on something, right? They don't do that as much anymore because with all the information out there, people are going to go to whoever the person is that's talking about the things the way they want to hear. Right. And so now everybody's done that. And so everybody's doubled down on whoever their base is, and they're just preaching to the choir. Right. And so again, you see this in jiu-jitsu where it's like, all the self-defense guys, oh, these guys are doing it wrong. Sport guys, oh, these guys are pussies. Or no, they talk about it. It's just like, it's just jiu-jitsu. Like, we're doing jiu-jitsu. I'm not like, I don't want to like break it up. Oh, the gi's the best. The no gi's the best. This, I'm like, I just like it all. That's the way that I look at things. And I don't want people to tell me how I'm supposed to think and feel about something. And you shouldn't either. If you think about something, you should come to the conclusion yourself, not taking someone else's word for it. Right. You should have your own experiences, and that's what you should base things off of. Because again, it's such a weird thing too, because everybody's running around thinking they're right. I always think that's weird, right? Like, how are you so right about things? Because if you're right all the time, like you think you are, then why are you not a millionaire or a trillionaire? I mean, because if you're right all the time, then you should just take all your money and start investing in it, because you're obviously right all the time. So you're going to be right about everything. And then like, you'll make tons of money, go run a business, whatever, because you're right all the time. Now we know that's all bullshit, right? We're not right all the time. So I think it's one of those things where when you approach these things, that you should be willing to like listen to the other side of the story. And you should also be like willing to like give some ground on it and realize that you may not be right about everything or correct. And even if you are correct about your subjective experience and your subjective view on it, that's subjective. It's not objective. It's the way that you view things, and someone else may view it a completely different way. So hope that was the way that this was taken, was simply, I'm a jiu-jitsu guy who loves jiu-jitsu, was trying to answer that question where I think that sport jiu-jitsu has something to offer.
Absolutely.
But so does self-defense, right? There's a lot of like striking, and learning how to deal with strike is very important if you're thinking about a fighting situation. 100%. So guys, with that said, thank you so much for joining us. Big thanks to our sponsors again for helping make this happen. You can check out Charlotte's Web at charlottesweb.com. It's a CBD company that Eugene and I both use. I'm a big fan of their products. I love their stuff. It's part of my daily recovery regimen. I notice a big difference when I'm on it. I've gotten off of it several times, and every time I get back on it, because it helps my old bones and body work a little bit better when it comes to training, and it's given me numerous benefits. And so I continue to keep it as a part of my supplementation regimen. You can check them out for yourself. If you want to get a pack of gummies or some tinctures, you can get 20% off with your order at charlottesweb.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20 for 20% off. Also, if you'd like to get some sweet Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gear, whether that's t-shirts, no-gi shorts that don't have a Velcro like strap, which I love, most comfortable no-gi shorts I've worn so far, rash guards, gis, whatever it is that you're looking for, you can get it at epicrollbjj.com. Matt is a black belt who's been training on the mats for a long time, who makes jiu-jitsu gear for jiu-jitsu practitioners. He's not some like goofball turd burger who's just trying to make a buck off of jiu-jitsu people. He's like trying to put something good out there and put out cool designs and put out good quality products. And he has a lot of little touches. Like when someone orders something from him, there's all kinds of little things that he adds to it. And people always come up to me, oh, that was so cool. He's had this little note in there. He had these little stickers in there, so it's an added touch to it. So he's a good dude, runs a cool company, lots of cool designs, high quality stuff. Check him out, epicrollbjj.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu for 15% off. Also, thanks to Manscaped for helping keep the podcast going and for helping me stay well groomed. So they are the company that originally I did not want to deal with. I was like, I don't want to talk about trimming anything. Then they sent their stuff over. I was like, it's actually a really good product. I know the analytics. Most of you guys listening to this are guys. We have some women on there. I know a lot of women listen to this too. So maybe could be a gift for your husband or spouse or whomever. Or if you don't like guys, you can be like, well, don't have to worry about it. I don't know. Jess, I guess if I let Jess use my trimmer, Jess, she's so funny. So the other day I got some jeans. I got some Origin jeans when I was up there.
Nice.
She put some on. She's like, oh, these are nice. I like these. So now I'm going to get her a pair. So Jess, like, especially when she's out in the barn, she likes having a good pair of like guy jeans because they have big pockets.
Okay.
Women's jeans don't have pockets.
Not at all.
They're
tiny little pockets.
Useless, bro. Like women, like every woman I've ever talked to that like wants some pockets, they get stoked about having pockets because guys stuff has pockets, women's stuff has no pockets. It's like useless pockets. But anyway, I'm sure Jess, if I gave her the trimmer, she'd find something to do with it. But so guys, if you want to check out Manscaped, you can go to their website at manscaped.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20 for 20% off the order and free shipping. They've got really high quality stuff. Everything from the trimmers and the razors, They're great. I mean, I've been using them for a couple of years now. Super good stuff. All their colognes and body sprays and lotions and shampoos and soaps, everything smells amazing. I love it. So again, if you want to check them out, guys, go to their website, check it out at manscaped.com. And last, guys, if you want to support the podcast directly, you can do so by going to our Patreon at patreon.com/the THE Jiu-Jitsu podcast, the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. You can get access to the exclusive content that we have. So I'm just going to say it like this. We make extra content. If you're someone that actually likes the podcast, you like listening to it, and if you would like a little bit more stuff, a little bit more content to listen to be entertained by, to maybe even get a little bit more of a sense of who Eugene and I are, because we talk about stuff that we don't talk about all the time in the podcast, just because, again, there's, some stuff you don't want to talk about publicly all the time. If you'd like to listen to that, plus an interview with each one of the guests that we've had on the podcast about something specific to jiu-jitsu training, along with some other videos that we've never released before, such as narrator roles, things like that. You can get that all at the Patreon at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. Also, guys, at the time of filming this, recording this, it is August. So I just want to give you guys a heads up. On September 9th, probably around 6 o'clock, we're going to be releasing the custom jiu-jitsu gi made by Origin. So last year we made those gis. It was amazing. Great reception. They're high quality gis. I can't wait to get them back out and get another batch going. And so again, if you guys want to check them out, check out my website, check out my Instagram or Facebook or any of the stuff that I put out on September 9th. You can also join my email newsletter at jujitsu.net/join, JOIN. That's jujitsu.net/join, JOIN. You'll get 3 free ebooks and you'll get added to my email newsletter. And that's where I'll be sending out the first links for it and everything else. And so if you guys want to get the first crack at it, that would be the place to go. I'm also going to be including some bonuses, more details on that for anybody that purchases the gis. But again, we're going to be releasing them. And again, the cool thing about the gis in my book is they're high quality gis, like legitimately high quality gis. I've had one since 2018. It's been with me ever since. It's still going. I don't even have a rip on the damn thing. But just as much as that, they're made in America by Americans making a living wage, and they're happy. Like, they're not like people that are, I went to the factory, saw them. They're not miserable people. They're not like, oh my God, get me out of this place. I'm ready. Like, there's no nets around Origin's factory where people are trying to kill themselves, right? Like, if you guys think about like Foxconn or something like that, right? Like where we're, I would love for all of our stuff to be made here, or at least be made by people being treated fairly.
Yeah.
I'd gladly pay double for everything that I have and just have less stuff. And that's the way that I look at it. Like, so for me to say like, hey, like, and then as a business owner, to see someone else treating their employees well, I like that. Because I'm a capitalist pig through and through, 100%, right? But at the same time, like, there's still a consciousness about it. I like making money. I like building a business, but people are more important than just pure profits. And so I like seeing a company that's like, treats the people the same way. They want to make money. They want to be a booming company. They want to make all this stuff, but at the same time, they're taking care of their people. And so again, I like that, and Origin does that. And so I'm super stoked about doing this partnership with them again. And if you want to check them out, get on Instagram, YouTube, or not Instagram or YouTube, but Instagram, Facebook, my email newsletter, and you can get details on that, more to come. Or you can just listen here and I'll tell you when they're released, because we'll have another podcast out soon enough and we'll talk more about it. But otherwise, guys, that is it. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. And as always, appreciate you guys. Oh, and hey, since we got you here for a second, you're still listening. You may have clicked out already because you're like, you know what? They're doing those sponsors stuff. I don't want to listen to that. I don't want any CBD to help me recover better. And I am not worried about the highest quality gi in the market that's got Jiu-Jitsu like logos and stuff on it. I'm not worried about this stuff. You know what I'm worried about? I don't know, whatever else you're clicking on. But if you're still with us, then you're the diehards, right? So, hey, what's up? So check us out. If you listen to us like this and you're like, hey, man, we really like this thing that you guys got going on this podcast, then I ask of you a favor, my friend. If you're on an app that has the capability of leaving a review, I would ask that you leave us a review. Leave us something positive, right? I mean, if it's like Apple and it's got 5 stars, leave us a 5-star review if you think we're worth it. And
I think we are.
I think we are. And a lot of you guys think we are, because you've been listening to this damn thing for years now, and I appreciate the hell out of you. But give us a review. If you don't want to give us a review, if you have a YouTube account, subscribe to our YouTube channel. It helps out with the old algorithm and such. And those things really help. They may not be It may not seem like a big deal to you, but those things are massive when it comes to people like looking at stuff, because if they come in and they see that there's lots of reviews, like, oh, that's legit. Like there's lots of reviews. Or if they go to a YouTube channel, oh, I should click on this. There's a lot of followers, right? And so those things can be helpful. And so if you've got a few minutes on your time, I mean, if you're driving, don't do it now. I don't want you to die because you're like, well, like, you know, the obituary says he was trying to leave a review because Chewy told him to, and he like ran off the guardrails. I don't want that to happen to you. I want you to be with us because maybe we can
safety first.
And maybe if you don't do that, you don't endanger yourself. Someday you'll be on the mats with me and we can train together, right? That would be beneficial. But that said, if you have some time later on when you're sitting around aimlessly scrolling through TikTok or whatever crap you're doing with the social media, then I ask that you maybe just say, you know what? I'm going to give him a review. I want you to hear my voice asking you to give you a review, or give me a review, or give us a review, give the podcast a review.
There you go.
If you're sitting around doing nothing. And again, if the app because some of them don't have reviews, do they?
I don't know.
Like
stars or hearts or whatever.
Yeah. Whatever.
Thumbs ups.
Yeah. If they've got something, you know, for you to review, give us a review, give us some positive feedback. And also if you guys have any positive feedback, you can always send it to Eugene at the Jiu-Jitsu podcast @gmail.com,
or the Instagram, the Jiu-Jitsu podcast.
He loves hearing about it.
I do. I usually will answer and I'll repost. And yeah, if you guys love the podcast, tag us, you know, on Instagram or whatever. We will share it, reshare it.
Let's do a contest one day with that.
Yeah.
But anyway, guys, that is it. So thank you for sticking around for this late little shoe in at the end. And I hope you guys have an amazing week. If it's Monday, and if it's not Monday, if it's like maybe it's the weekend, I hope you have an amazing weekend. Or if you're listening to us for years in the future, which is a possibility,
it is.
I hope the future is bright. Hope it's going really well for us. Hopefully the meteor hasn't hit, or it's not aiming to hit. And you know, hopefully we're all doing real well then.
Famous last words.
All right. Anyway, guys, I'm done being rambly. Talk to you guys next time.